Hello, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives, and welcome to our good friend Hervoye Morić, who's back for our kind of monthly check-in with each other, and very interesting stuff going on here. So I can't wait to get your perspective, Hervoye, on things like the election, the ongoing wars, and Elon Musk in particular is kind of a big thinking thing in my mind right now when since he's come out with former President Trump and announcing something called Dark MAGA, which sounds kind of creepy to me. What do you think?
It's a lot of cringe for me. Too much cringe seeing that photo of Elon Musk. I don't know if you saw where he's jumping. There's that.
Oh! He was doing some kind of crazy dancing.
They took a snapshot where Trump was at the podium, and I guess when he was introduced, and Elon Musk was jumping, and he had his head was a little off kilter, and he looked absolutely absurd. And then the whole dark MAGA thing, and I'm just not buying the psyop, John. To tell you, to tell you the truth, I feel like we are being somehow deceived, and they always mix in truth with lie. And that's how they get you. He said I was arguing with some of my Mexican friends yesterday, where they're a bit more optimistic on Trump and um, Musk. I think you heard Musk said he wants to get rid of both of them. Said they want to downsize the government, right?
Oh yeah, he's the director of government efficiency.
And so, like, okay, I was on the one hand, we would agree with that. That's good, right? And so that's a good thing. But that's technocracy. You can't forget the fact that Musk's was a grandfather in Canada, was head of Technocracy Canada, and technocracy means also downsizing the government, getting rid of politicians to make way for the algocracy ruled by algorithm, ruled by big tech, which is all that's Elon Musk, right? Starlink, Tesla, Neuralink, the rest of the Silicon Valley apparatus. And so I just fear, I'm always thinking really long term, and so what's going to be around the corner. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Gulags in Mars. I'm just as freaked out as you are by it. I feel the surge of hope in the terms of the populists, the nationalists, the constitutional supporters, the people that say, America is not over. We just got to get back to our constitutional foundations and clean out all of the mess. But you're certainly not going in that direction with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a somebody that wants to conquer the whole planetary system. The solar system. He's somebody that is He's motivated to continue sending our money into technological development, no matter with no limit. In other words, going to Mars is a big deal, but that's not the end. When he gets to Mars, he's going to say, "Oh, we got to go to the asteroid belt. Now we've got to go to Jupiter. I mean, goodness, we can get to the next galaxy if we use the right technology. Let's go." Meanwhile, everybody is still sitting around waiting for some help because our economy is going to hell and our people are demoralized as hell and stuck watching computer screens for entertainment. We're being driven inside. We're being deprived of sunlight as well as social companionship by the various diseases that come along. I'm not saying anything about where they come from, but this is a very demoralizing thing to me to hear. The appeal of it is to kids, right? It's like, oh, this is going to be the Avengers. This is dark magic. Oh, I love this dark stuff. Yeah, let's do some wiki wacky and win everything. That's just a cover story, man. There is a lot of dark stuff going on. and it's very, very, very dark in what I perceive. And while you hold up Trump as a bastion of hope that he's going to clean up, he's going to stop the trafficking, he's going to stop the drugs, he's going to stop the illegal immigration, he's going to stop crime, he's going to stop Antifa, he's going to get rid of all of the Democratic leadership, like Obama, Clinton, all of them. Clean up the administration. Fine. But why are we now going along with Elon Musk? Is it just to get the youth vote? Or is Elon's technocratic agenda, through, as you said, through his grandfather, and his mother is pretty interesting too. I think her name is it Maha or something not too far away from MAGA, but she is in- a model, but also a nutritionist, and there are a number of photographs of her doing the old one eye thing, And I say, man, when you do that one eye thing, for those famous photographers, you're signing up. I think you're signing up to keep quiet about certain things, and I'm afraid, that regime is not going to stop, even with Trump.
Maya Musk, it says in the search end, that's her name, Maya Musk. I honestly do not think we'll ever make it to Mars. I think that's a bluff or a diversion. I do not think it's possible. I don't think even we made it to the moon. I believe that was staged, and the space race was used for another agenda. Some people, one of the agendas of others, I'm not aware of, but one I do believe that again, this goes back to my obsession of world government, is that's their end goal, is a world state with all nations plugged into it, and the space race was one of the existential threats or projects that was pulling the world together. And just last year I read a blog from a globalist think tank that said just exactly that the whole space race was that they could utilize it to sort of bring one world together. So anyways, I'm getting a little off track. And by the way, there was a great meme I saw the other day. You talk about going outside. There's a worker at his desk on a Zoom call, and there's a window with the sun outside, and he says, "Excuse me, everyone. Sorry to interrupt. I have sunshine on the other line. I have to take this call," and he just walks out into the wilderness away from the Zoom call. But Trump, Michael Tracy, he's a avid commentator, journalist. He commented, I guess, at one of Trump's recent rallies or speeches. He's all about bombing Iran, and Michael Tracy says Trump says Israel should hit Iran's nuclear facilities. Yet another bold anti-war statement on his part, a terrifying blow to the deep state and military-industrial complex. And then, Naftali Bennett, I think he was for a brief time the prime minister of Israel previously. He came out on CNN. The Wolf guy, something, who's been there for like
Wolf Blitzer.
Yeah, for like 50, he's been there for like a century at CNN.
Oh, he's Mr. Green Screen, man.
Yeah, and Naftali Bennett says sometimes history knocks on your door, and you've got to seize the moment. If we don't do it now, I don't see it ever happening. We must take out Iran's nuclear program now. He literally said, this would be the gift of the Jewish people to the Iranian people. And so it seems Trump is on board totally with going for Iran. And that's been the plan since forever. I wrote about that in my weekly paid subscriber write-up. When you ask me what is on my mind, usually it's in my weekly write-up. I collect the headlines that come across my space, and whatever I feel moved to write about, it's in there. And Trump it looks like if he gets elected, he'll lead the way towards war with Iran. I don't know.
Yeah, and China too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll see him, purportedly try to make some deals. But I think they want war, some sort of conflict with Iran.
Yeah, well, yeah. I've never been convinced that Iran is a sovereign state, though. I think, the CIA was very involved in the Islamic Revolution, and the people that are, these scary mullahs that are on the news, I don't think they're any more than puppets of some hidden interest already. So while it's convenient to, to blame Iran and go to war with them and grab the resources that way as being consistent with what Israel wants to do. Uh, it's like a cover story that Israel is going to do the war, and we're just paying for it, just like we're doing in Ukraine. But I do think that the idea that Israel wants to just expand and expand with really no limits, including what if they just took over Iran as a result of military devastation of Iranian government and just coming in and taking it over. I mean, if the United States doesn't stop them, I don't think Russia can stop them. So Israel, greater Israel. It looks like they're trying to just expand territorially and control other governments, kind of just like the United States has done for so long.
I've heard that for a long time, even from Iranians themselves, that the Iranian regime, just like all of our regimes, are Illuminati, right? Like the American oligarchy, the European, that they are run by the occultocracy. And then you had, I don't know if you caught this, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad on CNN Turkey. He said that the person who was in charge of Iran's that was in charge of Iran's division meant to thwart Mossad operations was actually found out himself to be an Israeli spy. And then there were another 20 members who were Mossad agents. And I'm just curious. So even someone in my chat said this the other day, but the problem is, when we talk about the oligarchy and in Kremlin, you've had Yuri Roshka on, and there's evidence for that. We talk about it in other, in China, there's evidence for that. But when we talk about it, Iran, I haven't done a deep dive. And you mentioned the '79 revolution. We got the documents on the Shah of Iran, right? Operation Ajax, 1953. You can read the actual CIA paper. It was the MI6 and CIA overthrew Mossadegh. Got it. But with the '79 revolution, do you have any? Are there any books where you've read, or details that speak to how they are acting in the interests of the West somehow?
That Iran is acting in the West in the interest of the West.
The current Iranian regime, the elites, that they are. Do you have any sources on how they are?
No, I'm not plugged in enough to say that. I think your opinion on that's much more valuable than mine. But in the context of the Iranian hostage crisis back in '79, one of the things that really struck me was when I read about the I think it was Operation Eagle Claw, and it was when the Carter administration launched a mission to try to rescue the hostages with these helicopters, and the helicopters ended up failing to work in the desert. I don't remember exactly how it got derailed, but it seemed to me that there was a kind of a deep state hand that came in and derailed the rescue plan because for some ulterior motive. And I do think that whatever the they is behind the curtain, that they will do things like that. Even though it looks like these are our special forces or Navy SEALs or the greatest guys we got out there, and we're going to sacrifice them. We're going to crash their helicopter. Why? Just to achieve what we think is a greater good. I guess that's another theme of all this. Really, is can we use evil to do good?
Well,
Um,
just before going on that tangent, what I thought also, since we were talking about Israel and Iran, and you mentioned Greater Israel, something that I decided to go on a tangent with on my weekly write up was, I think part of what they're doing in the Middle East now, again, the end, all roads lead to world government. And so I'm just reverse
mhm.
engineering using their own documents. And there's an old website, it's still up, a blog that I used to run. I think it's governancearchive.wordpress.com. And this is from like 10 plus years ago, where I was tracking with mainstream sources the build towards world government. And they have they're focused on all the regions. And so they want, like I've said before, the EU is the model, and then it seems the cultural, economic, and political integration, and then now you have that they're really pushing NATO globally. So that would be, so they want everyone, like they want a Middle Eastern Union, a European Union, an African Union, and then once that's done, they also want military security union, I guess, with NATO, because you had the Israeli president on Sunday come out and say that they want to create a NATO-like structure in the region, in the Middle East, that blocks radicalism. And that just rang a bell and jogged my memory. And I went back. I have links going on different documents. I used to actually use this in my courses over a decade ago. Some of the links don't work anymore. The Council on Foreign Relations, but the Internet Archive, like if you put in the old link, it takes you just to the main website. It doesn't work anymore. It's
Mm,
weird. It's like they're wiping history. But if you
yeah.
put it into archive.org, it's still there. And then I found articles. This is 2012. The Council on Foreign Relations: the future of Middle East regionalism. Can an institutional desert bloom? He says the Arab League might be poised to transform itself along the lines of the African Union. There's an article of 2014 Council on Foreign Relations where it says the EU offers a model for unifying the Middle East. And then he even basically alludes to how war can be the perfect pretext for the birth of this EU-like Middle East. I found articles that I had from 2013, how they were talking to create a common currency in the Middle East that has not realized. It's been unrealized so far, that dream. And Turkey, in the old Financial Times article, said the Middle East needs its own EU. And I found one from 2 years ago from a globalist think tank where he said that the dynamics suggest that the Middle East NATO moment is now. Rather than uniting against Israel, Arab countries appear to be uniting with Israel. The question is not whether a Middle East NATO is possible, but whether there's a threat big enough to cause it, considering the aggression of Iran. So here, if you read between the lines, he's saying this threat of Iran can be used to cause the creation of a Middle East NATO. And so you see them talking about that over and over again. And then you've got the Japanese prime minister that's incoming, Ishida, I think. He's saying we need an Asian NATO. We need to integrate all of the Asian countries, band them together, give them nuke sharing with America.
Nuke
And
sharing.
yeah, share America's nukes.
Sounds like wife sharing to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
and then again, you can extrapolate. You see the trend. There was an important piece. New Zealand basically has adopted U.S. foreign policy as its own. That's a
Uh-huh.
new article. Um, and so you see this. They are obsessed with Asian NATO, NATO, Middle Eastern NATO, and so I think part of the what they're doing in the Middle East now with Israel is it kind of makes sense if they go, what that's for me explains one of the reasons they're destroying Yemen and destroying Syria and Libya and uh, parts of the Middle East, because that's that EU model. EU was born out of World War. Destroy Europe, rebuild it into regional union. Destroy
Yeah.
Middle East, rebuild it into Middle Eastern Union. North America here, where we are, you've got this insane migration that's destroying a lot of infrastructure, society, economy. Who knows what awaits us? Are we going to have a war with the cartels? It was a crazy story. The mayor of a mayor here in Mexico, in another state, he was the mayor of, I'm trying to find the article, here it is, Chilpancingo. His head, his decapitated head was found in a pickup truck like 2 days ago, 6 days after being elected, and 3 days before that, his government secretary was shot dead in the center of the state capitol. I like this.
What were they sin? What were their sins?
I don't know. I mean, it's just another day in Mexico. You know, the
Uh,
cartels just run run the place. But anyways, I got off on a tangent. I think what's happening, a lot of what's happening around the world, especially in the Middle East, is related to the globalist, world order building project.
the tension between Israel and the Arab neighbors has been a constant theme in our entire lives, and that uh, tendency to believe that at some point there's going to be that big war in the Middle East. It's like predictive programming, saying that look how likely it is that this is going to happen, and then boom, it happens, and everybody goes, oh well, we knew that was going to happen, even though it's horrible. And the horrors of a Middle Eastern war right now seems to be uh, a way that they can cause the chaos out of which the phoenix can rise, and they can unite the tribes under a new regime that will provide peace and happiness and security. But it is absolutely, as you say, that from Mexico to the United States, if a political officer isn't towing the line, they will kill them. And President Trump's two, at least, near misses are evidence of that. The idea that Trump could come in and actually clean up the deep state is a really, really far. That's I guess what we've been saying is that it just doesn't look like it's possible, and with the technological, the techno world that this is Bertrand Russell. This is the Fabians. This is the ultimate culmination of all the dreams of British Secret Service from the 19th century. They're not only conquering Europe and Asia, they're conquering the whole world just by destroying the ability of sovereign nations to exist. And that's, again, I think Iran is an example of that. But also all the nations of South and Central America are, they've never been sovereign in terms of actually being able to make their own foreign policy. And that is the bottom line, is that right now, they know that if they can control the foreign policy of all the governments in the world, then there's nothing that the people can do about it, as long as the people are kept pretty, bread and circuses, NFL and pizza, and Netflix and all of the things that go along with our really bizarre cultural entertainment. All of that stuff is just there to entertain us while they're taking over the world. Once they got it, I don't think we're going to be sitting back and watching Netflix in our casual, night off. I think they're going to have to find some other way to make use of all the energy we represent.
The Squid
why
Game.
waste it? Huh?
The running man. That was the original Squid Game. I remember, the 1980s. What a time to be alive, the 80s and 90s. Boy, I grew up going to the VHS store. There was a Korean guy who owned it where I was in Chicago, or when I was in Croatia. I watched all the Van Damme movies, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Seagal, Chuck Norris. And there was The Running Man. Remember The Running Man in the 80s?
I don't know.
There was a Schwarzenegger sci-fi film where it was a reality TV show in the future. And I think they were criminals, maybe even dissidents. They were it was like, remember American Gladiator in the 90s? There's this American Gladiator. TV show. And so,
I was kind of checked out from
okay.
TV for about 20 years. So
Well, when
picture
I was,
me in the cow pastures playing the fiddle, okay, for 20 years.
and so Running Man is like they throw them into this reality TV show where they're going to be killed. They're trying to kill them, but if you
Oh,
survive being killed, you get to go free. But basically, the TV show studio makes sure that you basically cannot survive. But somehow, I think Schwarzenegger in the film actually does survive, and they get angry with him. And now you've got this show. You've had Hunger Games, you've had The Purge. People talk about how Trump recently at a rally referenced a purge-like policy to allow the cops for a brief moment in time to run rampant. Uh,
hmm.
and so it's weird how you're seeing all this Squid Game. I haven't seen that yet, but I don't have Netflix, but I know someone who does, so I can mooch off of them. Um, Squid Game is that game where, again, it's similar to Running Man, where it's like a live reality TV show where they kill you, but if you survive, you get awards or you get to go free. So maybe we'll go to that in the future. I did. What else was I going to mention? Oh, the technocracy. By the way, someone in the chat brought up Sybil Edmonds. I used to watch her stuff. I forget the name of
Oh,
her.
yeah.
Newsbud was her thing.
I watched her a
Yeah,
lot, 4 or 5 years ago until she wound it up.
I think because I think they didn't have enough money. You see how
Well,
podcasts.
she also had a child and wanted to have at least that was what she said. She wanted to just have her family get back to her family business for a while.
I didn't know that part. The thing that I heard was that they hadn't had enough funds, and then they just wound it down. But you mentioned,
Could be both.
yeah, probably both.
But
But
she was great, and a former FBI, I don't know what she was, a clerk of some kind that had access to a lot of documents, and she was a translator, of course. That's what
by
she was.
translator, yeah. So she
Yeah.
caught wind of some of the shady stuff that the government was doing. But the technocracy, again, I always write a lot about that every week, and I mean, I can just give a short synopsis. I had on my guest. He came back again yesterday. We recorded a German Christian AI scientist, Job Landgrebe. His thesis is that this dystopia will not be technically possible. That we will always find ways to skirt around it.
Hmm.
So that's a bit white pilling there. I think he has a point. I'm sort of somewhere in the middle because I see them. Look, I'm reading the news, the developments. They just keep advancing. The National Reconnaissance Office, I read yesterday, they're deploying 100 satellites now, which will enable the U.S. to keep a persistent gaze on a given point on Earth.
Panopticon.
Right.
It's a panopticon. If you don't know, guys, a panopticon was the invention or mental or the conceit of somebody back in the 18th century that you could build a prison in which you could be able to look around into all the cells at once. Just one person in the middle could see everybody, so that nobody could get away with anything because you were always visible. And I think that's what the Starlink stuff and all these satellites are is to keep an eye on us 24/7, and if we get out of line, then they got other satellites for that.
And the metaphysical or religious dimension for me that also explains this is the goal of the world government is Satan wants to feel like God, and he wants to replicate or mimic all of God's attributes, which one of them includes omniscience, like the panopticon. God can see everything. God is like
Mhm.
the satellite that records everything and sees everything. And so Satan wants that capability, which is, I think, why all of this is being built out. And then you've got, Kuwait now. In Kuwait, whether you're a foreigner or a citizen, if you have not undergone biometric fingerprinting, they're freezing your bank account now. China was just reported they're taking away passports from public sector employees and school teachers. It says, as Xi Jinping tightens his grip on society, it's called personal travel abroad management. Venezuela just passed a law where if your Venezuelan passport has expired, you cannot enter the country. But the embassies abroad are basically shut down, so they're leaving Venezuelans like Tom Hanks in the terminal, with stateless.
Mm.
So they can't, which is absurd. I think in most countries, even if they cannot deny you entry. If I'm a U.S. citizen, they cannot deny me entry. If I've got some other form of identification, even if it's expired, they can't deny me entry. And then you've got, Singapore just rolling out these biometric systems that it says they can target. It's targeted to beef up the monitoring of travelers. So they all over the place, Venezuela, China, Kuwait, Singapore, they can now much more strictly control who enters the country or who exits. Bosnia, it says they're leapfrogging their way towards the digital ID. And it says users will be able to download the mobile app, tap their physical identity card, and conduct a biometric liveness check. What is that? Like, you got to check in with the government? And so you see this going. Kazan, Tatarstan, Russia, which I have visited, Russia, biometric face payments via the Russia National Payment Card System has now been deployed, and it's going to be spreading all over Russia. And so there is some good news, though, John. The universal basic income bill in Canada failed, and the world's largest insect farm, which was a French company, is going bankrupt. So it's not going to be easy for them to get us to eat the bugs.
Well, that was certainly a lot of confirmation to what I think most of us that do any digging at all are aware, that this technocratic future is hell. It's a nightmare. It's as bad as Aldous Huxley and George Orwell predicted, and we can't sit back and let it happen. Your account of you had a German guest who says that he thinks that eventually technological solution is going to fail. It just can't work. It reminds me of the new generation Star Trek movie, when Captain Kirk, in order to I don't know what he's getting his captain's wings or something, he has to pass this test called the Kobayashi Maru or something like that. And it's the Kobayashi Maru is a test that is designed to fail, that you can't possibly win it. It's all been programmed, and you're supposed to just tear your hair out trying to win, because the whole universe is at stake if you lose this. And they say after you learn what happens, you realize, they say, well, the reason for the test is to see how you handle defeat, because we got to know if our captains are going to be able to respond when they can't win. How do you respond to that? But Captain Kirk, of course, being Captain Kirk, found a way to screw up the programming in the machine. And so, when the photon torpedoes start coming at him, and somebody says, "Shall I raise the shields?" He says, "No, don't worry about the shields. That's fine." "Oh, okay. The Klingons are coming. Don't worry about the Klingons. No worry." And then eventually the program grinds to a halt, and he's beaten the program. That's the human spirit. We will beat the program. We will not be programmed. We will be the programmers, and we will stand you down, no matter how big your computer is and how well you think you can program it, because we are humans. That's John Wayne. That's the Wild West. That's I will not be stopped. I will stand up for my humanity against any technocracy. But how realistic is it? It's a beautiful dream to think, even with the Kobayashi Maru against me, I can win.
I mean, it's the classic Patrick. It was my favorite when I came across it 2 decades ago. Patrick McGoohan, The Prisoner. I'm not a number. I will not be pushed, filed, briefed, debriefed, indexed. I'm not a number. What does he say? I'm a human being, or I'm a man. I am my own, I think he says. And that is the principle. And I always, the word that I like that comes to mind is disrupt. I recently interviewed Ned Ryan, who wrote a book on the administrative state. He was in the Bush administration. I think he was a writer in the White House. And in his book, he used the term disrupt. And I think that's the perfect word when we're talking about this technocracy. Is You just have to keep disrupting it. Like in COVID times, there was this disruption. Don't wear a mask, wear it on your chin, or you find all different ways to disrupt the thing, and I think that's what we'll have to do, keep doing going forward.
Well, this, blows against the empire. One of my favorite Jefferson Airplane albums from the great Grace Slick. The idea that we can in our own little way screw up the algorithm, but I don't find much hope there. I feel like what we really have to have is culture. We've got to have. We got to. I mean, we can't even dance anymore. I mean, people are going out and doing it, but I'm not sure how safe it is because there's still all of these, bugs out there that can trigger things that like viruses and in my case like cancer. So I used to dance every week, and I don't dance at all anymore. And losing the fellowship and companionship that we used to have in any type of a little club or bicycle club or bridge club or you name it. And in a broader sense of community in terms of doing public service together and observing the holidays together and going to the parades, honoring things like the national anthem and stuff. The Trump MAGA people are all about that, but I'm not sure about the rest of the country. I think that they think it's kind of quaint and outdated. And that's the thing, is that this international drive of the Democratic Party to project our power all around the world and to do things like basically take over Zelensky's brain and force him to do exactly what we want done, no matter how bad it is for his country or because basically at some point the guy is owned. Now this pursuing these dreams of defeating Russia for American capitalism that's un-American. It's like, who cares about Russia? If you really want this, what I want to see is health. I like what Bobby says. Make America healthy again, and that's the other half of what I do is work on trying to understand what's wrong with our nutrition and what's wrong with our public health services and what's wrong with medicine generally. And while I won't go into anything specific because I am on YouTube this morning, I do not trust the system one bit. And until we clean that up, I think we don't have a whole lot of reason to be out, chasing dragons in foreign lands.
What you said, I mean, just living in the analog world culture, right? I think it's in an individual level. If enough people do it individually, that basically comes together, creates like an orchestra. And so, yeah, people need to go back to the old days of hanging with neighbors, friends, family, barbecues, like in the real world. I was in the supermarket yesterday, and some lady, it was not organized well, the shop, and I needed to get to a shelf, and there was a young girl at the checkout in my way. I don't have my phone with me. I don't have to carry my phone. I just went to go buy bread or something. And she's blocking my path, completely oblivious to the world around her on her phone, waiting to check out. And I'm just kind of like, can I walk through? Like for me, like this is just one little example. I'm never like that. If I'm standing in a shop, I'm usually not on my phone. I have situational awareness. I would have been like, oh, I would have noticed that the person wants to get through and I would have let them through. So this is just like a tiny little example of how far people are going. And often when I'm driving, if I'm stopped at a light, I take a look around at the drivers, and sure enough, virtually most of them, they're all on on their phones, and I'm just like, what is going on? Seriously, it's too much for me. And so, as you say, we need to sort of fight to bring back that camaraderie in the analog space, right? In the analog space, however, whatever that means for people.
Well, it's the only space I ever knew, you know. This digital thing came along in my middle of my life, you know, and it was it's a big struggle for me to just open up a computer and so how in the world does word processing work? You know, what do I have to do? And you know, thank goodness I was practicing law at the time, and I had a secretary, so my secretary could figure all that stuff out, and I never had to. But as I've tried to become active in the past 10 years, in trying to talk about my dad's career and the other issues of our world, as I uh, have had to adopt my mind to doing digital things, but I hate it. I hate the endless series of 1 0 1 0. You know, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. You know, follow the little outline to get to where you need to be. Oh man, that wears me down. And I say that because I think it is part of just overloading us with meaningless tasks that cause us to wear out all of our energy and never be able to sit down and put the things together to get an accurate picture of what's really going on in our world. And the farther along that we get, the more I realize that kids have been detached from birth. They never really have an analog world anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'm too old to say that, but what do you think? Are the kids still have an analog world experience?
It depends on whose kids. So far, I've managed to it where my kids live in an analog world, and I'm happy where they can spend hours just playing in the analog world. There will be moments where, and it's digital crack cocaine. One of my kids, she wants one of those animated cartoon series, and sometimes she
Hmm.
acts like a drug addict. She's like, I want to watch that show, and
Yeah.
we will very sparsely, once in a while, sure, why not? I grew up. I I think one of the reasons I'm wearing glasses is when I was what 10 years old, fifth grade. Um, I got the Nintendo, the original 8-bit Nintendo, and I was
Hmm.
like a maniac playing Nintendo, Mario, then later Super Nintendo, and then computer games and movies. And so, yeah, that's all right from a cultural perspective. And so, but we kind of try to push them to enjoy the analog world, and so they'll go out in nature, they'll just play with stuff around different people's homes, and so we've been able to save that off for now. But yeah, as you say, there's a lot of people around us, kids, that are just you can attach a smartphone to their face, you
Yeah.
know, basically. And
It's
I
cheaper
was
than a babysitter.
and I go back to
Yeah.
the experience I had during COVID 2020. I was in Kazakhstan, and somehow we made it back to Mexico, July 2020. And then still for 1 year, I was able to get paid to teach virtually from Mexico to Kazakhstan. And that's when they had the COVID app in Kazakhstan, where you could not go to a coffee shop, to a restaurant, to a mall in Kazakhstan. It was called the Ashik app, and you had to have
Mm.
the green or blue light or whatever, which meant that you either were vaccinated or you had taken a PCR test and it was not positive. And that meant for everyone from teenagers to adults. And I asked some of my students, I was doing, I forget what I was teaching, history, political science on the Microsoft Teams class. And I asked one of the students, like, so I was asking them what was going on in Kazakhstan. Is this true? You have to use the Ashik app to access everything? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, do you think that's okay? Like, is that normal for you? And they were like, yeah, fine. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, they had no conception
That's
at
what I'm
all.
worried about. They're being raised so that they don't ever think that there was ever this thing called an analog world where you basically, make it up as you go along. You use your reason, your frontal lobes to sort through what your options are, and you make reasonable choices, and that's part of being a human. But if you turn yourself over to the digital world from childhood, you don't even know about the possibilities of what we call a free conscience, a freedom of mind.
I mean, it's just another example. I was again in some supermarket the other day, and I was just taken aback. The lady's like, something she said like, "What's your phone number?" Or would you give me your phone number? The clerk for for the rewards system.
Hmm.
And I'm just thinking like, what the hell? Like my phone number to buy a piece of bread? Like
Yeah.
you're crazy. Like you're insane. Like what planet? Like they think it's normal. And you go to any convenience store, even here in Mexico now, they're like, you have a points card? You want the points card? And you have to give your phone number, all your data. And I'm like looking at them like, what planet are you guys from? And they're looking at me like, what planet am I from? Like they think it's not normal to not give your phone number and your name to buy a piece of bread. And I'm just like I'd rather pay. Then I tell them sometimes I'd rather pay a premium to maintain my privacy. Like, why do you need my phone number? And it's insane. And then people they don't get it. It's like we live in two different worlds. It is like we're becoming in those sci-fi films. Was it Brave New World or Gattaca? We're gonna end up with two different tiers or three of human human beings.
Well, yeah. I was just watching what George Webb's Substack this morning, and he's really he uses the phrase "DARPA kids," and I think, oh, well, this is you think about these people that are now, maybe your age, that are techno geniuses, but were their minds programmed when they were very, very young? Were they formatted, as would be the digital term for it? Let's and I was also I've been watching another person named Dr. Jack Krause, Kruse, Kruse, Jack Kruse. He's been all over the place lately. He's gotten on the Bobby team and talks a lot about Bitcoin and stuff. But he's a real.
Oh, is that the guy who was on that Danny Jones
Yeah,
podcast?
yeah, yeah.
I've
I
bookmarked
did
that.
I did 3.5 hours of it, and it was torture, but I got through it this weekend. And there's better videos of Jack Kruse. He's very, you know I thought I thought he was kind of like like John Goodman talking to Steve Buscemi in The Big Lebowski, where it's like Jones is like, he's just sitting back going, and he's going, and then you don't know this, and you don't know this either, and you should know this by now, It's like, calm down, Jack. We're all trying to be on the same level here. But I've been watching another one of his, and he speaks about this something called the Marshmallow Project out of Stanford, and Susan Wojcicki, who died recently of kind of a fast cancer, have and coming through that, and just to the whole thing is blowing my mind of thinking, well, Elon, all of these techno wizards, what if they are kind of Manchurian candidates in the sense that they were put through these programs as children, to format them to do exactly what they're doing now, and to put the conscience aside, to not have that empathy for the other people.
I think just simply growing up in an elite environment is enough to condition you. You can imagine like the Rockefeller family, the old David Rockefeller who just passed, and he's got his sons and daughters and the granddaughters, and they all grow up in this daily regime of, living in their palaces with butlers and the culture that's created by the parents. I teach my kids the biblical worldview, the Christian worldview, and then you get from these elites their elitist Malthusian worldview, right? Where they tell their kids, we are better than others. The other people are like these ill, disgusting, dirty people, and we are this fancy elites. And I've been around some of these people that you can tell from their body language. This is how they view you. They're narcissistic. They view like subhuman, Untermensch. And so I could just imagine if you're an Elon Musk or some other child of an elite, you will grow up with your parents this same philosophy, and carry it out further most of the time. That's how I. So they don't even need some special program, but I'm sure they'll be taken to special elite classes and taught all sorts of these mannerisms and culture.
And the other thing that I've really latched on to is blue light, and how you know about blue light, and I wear blue light blockers in my, it has my glasses and all, and but it's not just about eye strain. It's about a particular effect on your physiognomy that happens when blue light gets into you through your eyes. And that, I don't know much about it yet, but I'm finding it very fascinating, because it ties into like DARPA projects and things where they can use they can project light of different ways. If they can control my computer screen, they can send me whatever wavelengths of light that they want to try to turn on various processes like dopamine and things that might encourage me to stay and play another game of solitaire, or or to do something else that they want me to do. That is interesting to me. I'm following that up. I spend way too much time from an analog world point of view pursuing my studies on the digital platform that I have. What I have, one, two, three of them now, computers in different places, and it's definitely changed me. And I am addicted to it. I love the idea of I can study this thing in depth here, and then just flip over to a different page, and I'm studying something entirely different in depth. So I thrive on it mentally. I do, but it's also just a world that is, as somebody that spent a lot of my life playing music, I think it's kind of like the difference between being a really strictly classically trained person who won't play anything that's not on the page, and insists that he plays everything exactly right, and a jazz player who basically says, give me the tune, give me the chords, and I'm just going to mess around. And and I've always enjoyed the messing around part, but you have people that don't have that, in the music world. You'd get in. I would show up at a gig, and somebody just, you toss them the hot potato and they don't know what to do. It's like, oh, where's my chart? I need to read the notes. That is something that I want people to always hang on to, is the idea of you can play music and you'll never make a mistake, because everything you do leads into something else, and as a musician you will make it sound musical eventually. So if you just be a kind of a typist, of repeating what's on the paper in front of you, that to me is kind of like the digital brain, and the limit, the way that limits you. It puts blinders on you that you just, and you're afraid, you're scared to take that leap of, wow, what if I just started playing and I didn't mess up, and everybody would cheer at the end of my solo. Really? Could that possibly happen to me? No, that's just Stan Getz and all of those, great players. I'm not a great player. I'll never do anything. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, except for that the world is so wonderful the way it is. Trying to put borders on it, and in terms of, you have to have a passport, you have to have your retina examined before you can fly. All of this stuff is very counterproductive to humanity, and what I think, as I know you are a Christian and religious person, I have to say, God doesn't want us to be digital zombies. God wants us to be creative and to do things that are, I mean, as if, it were really true that we're made in the image of God.
I shared that instinct ever since I had been a teenager. I permanently expatriated. Um, when I was in my 20s, that whenever I went to, I spent a year in Geneva, Switzerland, which is in many ways, it's kind of an example of what you're talking about. It's like this utopian type place, right? Where things function very well. It's almost like this sterile, perfect utopia. I like one of the best examples that you can get on Earth at the moment. Or, if you compare countries, the developed world to the developing world, like US or Europe to Latin America, Africa, Asia. And something in me I just felt unnerved being in the US or in places like Switzerland, and just felt pulled to places, faraway places like Mongolia or Latin America. And I just kind of felt, well, it's kind of what you're talking about. I wanted that edge, that fringe where things fall apart, where things are not perfect. It makes you feel more alive than you do sort of living in this perfect utopia like Brave New World, where there's no soul and everything is just perfect. And I always felt unnerved with that. But also going back to your technocracy talk, I think we also have to be somewhat careful. You mentioned the panopticon. One of the things there is a Bentham, that originally in that idea, I think they wanted you to think that you were being watched every moment, but they could not do that. They didn't have the capacity to do it. And I think still to this day, that rings true. I see people bring up this question that, yeah, we have all these satellites, and yeah, they have all this and that. But, in reality, for all humans on Earth, how much can they actually, capture on you? I think it's more like a lot of potential is there. And if they wanted to target you, they could, in terms of surveillance, they could do a lot, but not as much as we think. And they would have to expound more resources, to go after John O'Loughlin, right? So I don't think they have basic systems in place, like the smartphone. It was the craziest thing. I went to the convenience store like a week ago to buy some potato chips, and I didn't have my phone, and somehow the Twitter ad, like then later that evening or the next day, was literally the same potato chips that I bought, and I didn't even take my phone with me. Like, how was that possible? So
Oh, see, now that was on your computer screen. They bounced the blue light, into your eyes. They went into your
I think
brain. They figured out what you were.
it may have been my wife's phone, because I may have said like, oh, they didn't have these chips that you wanted, so I got these. So I said it verbally in the house,
Yeah.
and her phone may have picked it up, and then it may have probably cross links with my ad profile and hers, or somehow. And I'm thinking it was probably the audio on her smartphone, so. Or who knows, or maybe somehow connected to the Wi-Fi.
Who hasn't had these experiences, though? I mean, it's not just anecdotes. This is, I think, pretty universal experience now. It certainly has happened to me many, many times, and I think that's
Oh,
they are like who was it was saying that. I mean, a few years ago that I heard people speaking of like betting on people, like just remote. Learning of people's characteristics and like betting on how long they'll live or what they're going to do next, or just the whole idea that there's a whole a betting pool on what we're going to do, and they can they're sending out signals out to us to see if they can influence us to do what they have bet that we will do.
Well, here's a tip for that, for disruption. And so after that happened to me, what I do sometimes to disrupt the system is I'll grab the phone or whatever, and I'll just start speaking nonsense that has nothing to do with my real, purchase, the things that I like. And so I don't have any pets. So I started talking about cats and dogs and pet food and stuff. And I kid you not, I laughed out loud. I don't often laugh out loud as often. So I was talking, that was the other night, and I was talking about things that are the opposite of my, what do you call it, consumption. And I kid you not, a Twitter ad then appeared about something to do with pets. And so that way, there's a word for it. James Corbett and others have talked about it. You sort of like flood, I can't remember, you poison, was it poisoning the info? There's some term where basically you seed out false information for the system to pick up to create an unrealistic profile of you. So I think that's another good strategy.
Boy, do I love cats. I have 20 cats just sitting right over there on my couch, and they're
Wow.
just shedding all of the fur. I love it. I love cat fur, don't you?
Well, I think with the cats, they just the thing with the dogs, you gotta take them out and deal with their poop and all. But the cats, they're pretty much, they do it themselves. No, in the box.
No, man, and you gotta clean the box, and it stinks.
Hey,
Don't you
toss it
know it
out.
stink? Oh boy, yeah. I'm a
That's why I
dog
don't.
person,
That's
can't
why I
you
don't.
tell?
That's why I don't have pets.
Oh, well, you should get a little dog. Yeah, keep you smiling.
We'll see. Yeah.
All right. Well, remember, I will remember this show for the humanity that comes across between us, and I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, we're trying to set some type of example of how we can defeat this technocracy that is descending upon us, and I think we're doing a pretty good job.
We just refuse to become indexed, briefed,
Yeah.
debriefed, remain, do not become a number. That's all.
All right, Hervoye, thank you very much, folks. You can see Hervoye at Geopolitics and Empire. He's always on Twitter and geopoliticsandempire.com. So thank you again. Bye now. We'll see you guys on Thursday.